Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Violet and I'm super happy to have you here. In today's video, we're going to be talking all about the new ColourPop Ulta exclusive palette, which is their new High Tide palette. If you missed it, this is what it looks like. I did do a video already creating 3 different looks, so if you missed that, I will link it in the description box below. But if you're curious and just coming for this video to know the swatches, comparisons, what look I did today, and what shades I used, any and all information, then definitely stay tuned. Starting off with the palette itself, again, this is an Ulta exclusive, so I'm not too sure if this will be coming up to ColourPop's actual website and in their main product line to stay, so I'm not too sure about that. But this did cost $14. You are receiving 9 different shades. I will talk about the inside and all of that here soon, but I wanted to quickly show y'all the packaging itself because it is so pretty. It is a cardboard box, so there is no plastic like snaps. It's a magnetic closure. It does have a raised bump detail that is super pretty. When you start to turn it, it's got like all these fun like shifts to it. It's gorgeous. On the back, it does pull the same pattern. It's got the shade names in opposite positioning, and then at the bottom, it gives you all of the weight information and just where ColourPop is distributed by, where it's at, the website, and then it tells you High Tide pressed powder palette at the top. Inside, this is what it looks like. Super pretty, so it does still have the same detailing and raised bump pattern. It just says ColourPop. So pretty. And then this is what the actual shades look like. So you are receiving 9 different shades. So they consist of 5 mattes, 1 matte with glitter, or like glitter particles, and 3 shimmers. There is no pressed glitters, so there is no eye safety warnings. There is no need for not using 1 shade in here or 2 shades that some of y'all I know are not fans of pressed glitters, so that's a bonus for some of y'all. Go ahead and go over these swatches, so we'll go ahead and take a look at those right now. So as I'm talking about each individual shade and showing you the swatches, I will include a video. So at the top of that, it is the shade called Just a Splash, which this is the matte shade that does have some glitter particles to it. It's more of like a pastel light seafoam green. Right underneath that, we have Currents, which is a matte shade as well, and this is pulling to be a mint seafoam green. Underneath that, we have Free Floating, which is a shimmer, and this pulls of like silver shift of a seafoam green. Right underneath that, we have the shade called Urchin, which is a matte, and this is more of a dark aquamarine or teal shade. Underneath this one is called Must See, which is a shimmer, and this is a aqua mint turquoise. Underneath that, we have the shade called Flora, which is a matte, and this is more of a light green aquamarine. Right underneath that, we have the shade called Muscle Beach, which is a shimmer, and this is a more of a darker must-see shade. Underneath that, we have New Wave, which is obviously a matte, and this one's just a teal shade. And then the last one is called Lunar, which is a matte, and this is a deep teal. So in this section for comparisons, I will be including pictures, videos, any and all information that you would like to know about these shades and how they compare with one another. Right here in this picture that you're seeing is a comparison between the ColourPop Blue Moon palette, which is another 9-pan palette, up against the new ColourPop High Tide palette. I wanted to give y'all just these were all taken in daylight, by the way, the swatches and all these comparison photos as well. They're just taken in natural outdoor lighting. I wanted to get a true representation of these palettes and their shades and how close they are, how not close they are. So here you could see that there was no particular comparison. There's no particular shades that were similar or dupes or anything that could come close to one another. And for that, I didn't swatch these shades side by side because I knew instantly that there was nothing that was going to compare between the two. So I also wanted to compare the High Tide palette against the Mint to Be palette. Both are from ColourPop. Both are 9-pan palettes. Starting from the top, we have Free Floating compared to Mint Tea. So Free Floating is from High Tide and Mint Tea is from Mint to Be. So that'll be the order. High Tide is always the top or the first shade, followed by the comparison swatch of Mint to Be's shade in the palette. So Free Floating is pulling a more silver seafoam green color, whereas Mint Tea is a more mint color. They're both shimmers. That's the only similarity that I could find between the two. Then I compared Flora against Chill Factor, and I thought that these were similar, but they're actually very, very different from one another. Flora is they're both mattes, that's the only similarity, but Flora is just a light green aquamarine, and Chill Factor pulls a little bit more grayish green, like teal kind of color. It's a more dusty mint, excuse me. So there was no comparison there. New Wave and Ice Cold I thought would compare very similarly, but in swatch photos they don't look the same at all, besides just being matte. New Wave is just a teal, and Ice Cold is more of a like aquamarine-ish shade. I do feel like on the eyes though they kind of pull a little similar. Splash and Get Fresh. Just a Splash is the matte shade that has these silver sparkles into it, and Get Fresh is just a flat matte color. In this picture it does look very similar, but Just a Splash has just a hint more of a light seafoam green color, and Get Fresh is just more minty. It's like a toothpaste-ish sort of color. Must See versus Mint Tea. I know it's kind of hard because it is on the side of my arm, but Must See is a more vibrant, more teal shimmer shade, and Mint Tea is just a super bright shimmer mint color, excuse me. And then I had originally in my notes compared Currants versus Dementhe, and then I thought maybe Currants is more similar to Seltzer, but in this swatch photo none of the three actually look, neither of Currants look similar to Seltzer or Dementhe. So I did also wanted to include comparison swatches between High Tide and any other shades from any of my other palettes in my collection that I thought would kind of compare between one another. So starting from the top, we have Hipster, which I compared it to because I thought it would look similar to either Currants or Just a Splash in my collection, or in the High Tide palette. Excuse me. Hipster is from the Profusion Festival palette, by the way. But I would feel like Hipster is probably like a shimmer version of Currants, and Just a Splash is just like a matte with a little bit of hint of sparkle to Hipster. So there is some similarities there, but no like exact color match. Corduroy, which is from the Emily and Makeup Revolution palette called The Wants, and I compared that to Lunar. The difference between the two, they look very similar on my arm, but Corduroy is more of a deep green and Lunar is just a more deep blue. Glitz, which is from my my Pinky Rose Bright Lights palette, and I compare that next to Must See. Glitz is just a very bright blue, almost like a cloud shimmer blue, and Must See is just, that of a teal shade or a mint turquoise. Now we're gonna go ahead and get onto towards like the bottom of my arm. We're like the second to last shade called Water Bear, and this is from ColourPop's Dream Street in collaboration with Kathleen Lights, and this is where we hit our dupes. We actually found dupes within this palette. So Dream Street is actually discontinued. So for those of you who really liked or who had this palette or really liked any of the shade, either blue shade from the Dream Street palette, just know that if you grab this palette, you will definitely have those shades again. So Water Bear and Lunar are exact dupes. You cannot tell a difference. On the eyes, I have not tested it out, but in this swatch photo itself, they are exact. There's no color difference. There is really no, one pulls more green, one pulls more blue, one gray. Like, it's just a perfect match. Same with Mermaid Boy and Muscle Beach, and I do like how they're both an MB abbreviation. Mermaid Boy and Muscle Beach, they just look exactly the same. There is really no difference between them. There's no like color difference. It's just they're dupes. So found dupes within ColourPop's own line of colors, which is to be expected because ColourPop does come out with a lot of the same similar shades, so there's bound to be dupes, but that's besides the point. And from the left in the top of it near my wrist, we have the Evil Eye. It's a single shadow from Sinful Colors that I picked up from the dollar store a couple years back, and I thought it looked very similar to Must See, but Evil Eye is just more green, I guess you could say. And then Must See is just more blue. And then the last shade comparison that I have is Snapdragon, which is a single ColourPop shadow next to New Wave, and Snapdragon is in no way, shape, or form anywhere close to New Wave, excuse me. But yes, so Snapdragon is definitely more blue, and then New Wave is definitely more teal. Now we're going to go ahead and talk about each shade in specific down to detail, because there was some problems that I encountered with some of these shades. There was some messiness to be had with some of these shades. So I am going to insert clips as I'm talking about each of these shades. One of the shades, I believe, is called Lunar. I do not have, I believe I don't have like video evidence of how it looks in the pan, but I will describe to you what I experienced with that shade. Starting off with Currants, and in this video you could see that the color on my eyes pretty much matches what's in the palette. I did have to take a few times really blending the shade out. It did have a lot of powdery kickback to it, so that is just something to be aware of. New Wave, I didn't experience any kickback with this one. This one's just more tightly packed. Compared to Currants, this one I did blend just a little bit of extra time. It did want to stick to my inner corner, and just the color sort of matched what's in the pan as well. Then we go on to Urchin, a bit brighter. It doesn't really match entirely of what's in the pan. Just kind of gave me a little bit of trouble on my left eye towards the middle of my lid. It didn't want to really blend there. Free Floatin' is such a gorgeous, gorgeous shimmer. It's my favorite. This one I didn't have any issues applying with my finger. I didn't need setting spray. I didn't need to enhance the vibrancy of this one whatsoever. And Lunar was the last shade that I used within look number 1, and this is the messiest freaking shade out of the entire palette. It will stain your palette, so just be aware. A little goes a long way, so you do not need a bunch. Be careful when you are swatching this with your finger or you're using a brush, because it will get everywhere. But it is an overall gorgeous shade, and I absolutely enjoyed this. Although it's just a basic matte shade, I really loved this one. Used just a splash first, and this one for the color on the eyes, it was a bit more bluer than what's in the pan. It's a shimmer glitter, but the glitter only appears when you're packing on this shade. It doesn't appear when you're blending it out, so it's not too much of an issue. Then I used Must See, and this shade looks exactly like what you see in the pan. In the palette is exactly what you get on the eyes. Didn't have trouble blending with my finger. It didn't need setting spray. It was a very vibrant, out there shade. It was beautiful. Then I used Muscle Beach. In this one I had to pick up quite a bit on my finger to really get enough color payoff on my eyes, but overall it was easy to apply with my finger. And the last look, I used Flora, and the pan matches the color on the eyes. It's a very pretty soft shade with a little bit of kickback or powderiness to it. This one I did have trouble blending in certain areas, such as my crease, so I did have to spend some time blending. And then again I used Free Floatin' again for the last look, and this one, for some reason, I don't know if it was just the color pairings and the different colors and how it affects and combines with others, but this one looked a little different than I had used in look number 1, but it was still a bright silver blue. I feel like it just shape shifts with the different matte shades used. So if you're curious on what shades I used and how I got this eye look on my eyes and how it all came to be, I will insert the clips right now. So for this bonus look, I started off with New Wave, and I used my IT Cosmetics, it's the Velvet Luxe Plush All Over 322 brush. Pretty much packed this and blended this into my crease and outer corner, and then I followed it up with the same brush, and I used Urchin, and I placed this in the outer corner, and then whatever was left over I blended up into my crease to kind of darken it up just a tad. And for the bright shimmer shade, I wanted to use a brush to see if this would have a better application process if opposed to my fingers, but actually no, I had a harder time using a brush with this shade than I did my fingers. So I tried to make it work, and I tried to spray it, and it just was not having it, so I just ended up going the method of my finger, and it created the vibrancy that you see on my lid. So this look is a very easy, simple look. It does have a pow moment to it. I am really pleased with it. I did add some lashes, and they are the LA Colors Dramatilash lashes in the style called Desire. And then the lip color I chose for today's look, which I'm not a fan of, but I went with it and I'm keeping it for the sake of this video. And it's called the Revlon Ultra HD Matte Lip Colors, and this one's called Devotion, one of my favorite shades and formulas of all time. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. I truly appreciate each and every one of you for taking the time out of your day to watch our YouTube videos, or at least my YouTube videos for now. I hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day and or week. Let me know if you picked up this palette or any of the other Ulta exclusive palettes in the comments down below. I would love to see you down there. Let's go ahead and chat, and I will see you in my next video. Bye bye, guys. If you would like to watch my previous video or be directed to the channel, click the links on your screen.